Morning, folks. I want to share something with you now. Just checking that you can all hear me. Give me a thumbs up, one or two of you at least, to be sure that sound is working okay. Super, that's great. If it works for a few, it should work for everybody. Just make sure you have your speakers on, everyone. Okay, we one or two more might join, but we'll make a start. Let me just first of all. Okay, so this is just a summary of the course. And I just want to be sure everybody goes through all the steps and doesn't inadvertently miss a step, as one or two maybe have. But again, it doesn't really matter too much the order in which you do these things. So just from the top, we started with the motorcycle case, and that took us up to page 13, which was the last page, but that actually goes on to page 19. But that we went as far as page 13, where we did our cost roll-up. So that was topic 2, the motorcycle case. Then we did topic 3, which was our assignment on MCWSC. Assignment. Right, there was a lot of work in that. And then also in topic 3, we had some amendments to that involved price changes, airbag being incorporated into the structure of the product in the correct place, and it involved then amending the bill of materials and the routing records. And there were also some changes to make to the routing of the chassis then on point 3. So all of those amendments were relevant to the MCWSC. Some people have done those, some people have not done them yet, but that's fine. You can go back at any stage and do those amendments. Okay, so that was the first section, if you like. Then we went on to our second module, cost centers, cost controlling. That was topic 4. And in topic 4, we created 3 cost centers for canteen, maintenance, and assembly. And in the assembly cost center, we created a work center. We called it CTR-N on your number. And we then incorporated that work center into the routing of the motorcycle. And then we did some amendments to the cost centers. So originally, the rate per hour for that new work center came out at a certain value, 45. We worked it out on the slides, 45. But after we did the amendments, it changed to €53 per hour. if you did it correctly, that's what you would have got. And then when you then rolled up your costs in CK11N for the motorcycle, that's the figure, the final figure that you should get, 1543.27. Having done all the steps and all the amendments. So that would be the figure after you've done the amendments, the original amendments for the MCWSC and the amendments to the cost center. If we, which we'll go on to do, replicate all the calculations in Excel, we'll come to the same figure except for a little rounding difference. So that is the absolute correct figure, 1543.23. The figure in SAP is out by 4 cents because SAP rounds at each stage of a calculation, it rounds to 2 decimal places. Whereas, you know, Excel maintains all the decimal places. You can see that's really, well, okay, they happen to be zeros. So Excel holds all the decimal places, even though you format to 2 decimal places, but SAP doesn't, it just rounds up. So it's ups and downs, you get a few cents of a difference, but only a few cents always. Okay, so that was, and that's the final figure after all changes to the motorcycle, MC motorcycle. Then in topic 5, we had a cost controlling assignment. And that assignment involved these 3 cost centers, QA, engineering, and production. And basically you were replicating what you did in the first case for the other 3 cost centers, even down to the fact that you could simply say QA replaces canteen, engineer not replaces, is equivalent to, we'll say, because we're not overwriting anything. And it's vitally important you don't overwrite anything for these cost centers. For instance, you had a group of these 3 cost centers, you cannot use the same group for these 3, overwriting those, because they're different cost centers, they're used in a different product line. So these are new cost centers, but as I was saying, that they ape what we did. So again, you can build production as you build assembly, you can build engineering as you build maintenance. So that assignment takes a bit of work. And as I said to those who've done it already, the way to start is to plan it on paper. Again, in landscape mode, your page, draw out the 3 cost centers, following exactly the way we showed on the original slides for canteen maintenance and assembly, putting in all the figures, doing all the calculations, and seeing from that plan what your final figures should be. So you'll know then if you make a mistake along the way. So in doing that assignment, you need to start with a plan. Now, when we were face to face, I could look at people's plans. I still can if you want to share the screen, if you want to do it that way. But anyway, the important thing is to do a plan. It shouldn't take too long, maybe half an hour. Some of you are past that stage. And then you're asked to create a new work center called WC for work center and your number. And that work center is used in one of the sub-assemblies of the MCWSC. Now, when you're doing this, read the instructions carefully. They're very simple in plain and simple English, but lots of people don't read it properly. You need to read the instructions properly to do this correctly. So that work center goes into the sub-assembly of the MCWSC, so therefore changes the overall figure for the MCWSC, because we use the work center in a routing that's involved in that structure. We also have amendments to do for this one, amendments. And remember, again, it's spelled out for you on the instructions, that after you make the changes, the amendments, you need to recalculate with KSUB and KSPI. And after you've done all of the amendments for the motorcycle with Syker, these amendments the cost centers, these amendments, and all this work, then you should get this figure for the MCWSC. Again, when you do it in Excel, you get a slight rounding difference in SAP. So those are the final figures after everything has been done. So we're going to do Excel, and we're going to have 4 sheets, 2 for motorcycle and 2 for MCWSC. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then when you have Excel done and you have verified, so even though I've told you the correct price, I still want you to verify it in Excel, and we want to do some further analysis as well in Excel. So you have 4 sheets, and we label them MC for motorcycle, MC pivot, because we're going to use a pivot table to do some analysis. Thirdly, MCWSC, and fourthly, MCWSC pivot. So we have 4 separate sheets, but we'll build it one at a time. And then when you have the Excel done and you've verified that these figures match and these figures match, you start off with the motorcycle and then do the same task for the motorcycle with sidecar. Then, and only then, you'll do your price update. Now, the correct prices, so do the price update by 2 for motorcycle and MCWSC, our 2 finished products, but only when you have these correct prices. Do not do a price update before you have the correct prices. You are allowed in SAP to do your price update once in a month. So if you do it, say, this week, and you do it incorrectly, you have to wait until the 1st of December to correct it. So don't do your price update until you have the correct prices in your CK11N. I was going to say something there. Oh yeah, 2 things. Today is the 3rd of November. So what I did, somebody has to do, usually the administrator or somebody in a position whose role allows them to do this. What I did was I forwarded, I think I may have told you this in October as well, I had to forward the system from October to November. So I basically closed off October and moved us into November, because until I do that, you can't make any postings in November. So the rule is you can make postings to the current month and the previous month. So last week you could have made postings to October and September. Now we can make postings in November and October. The other thing to mention, the idea of this price update, you might remember we originally had 1,500 as the standard cost price for the motorcycle and 2,500 as the standard cost price for the motorcycle with sidecar. So what we're doing in the price update is we're simply updating the material master record for the motorcycle, and we're overwriting this price of 1,500 with the actual cost price. And then when we do a price update for the MCWSC, we are updating the standard price in the material master record of 2,500 with this actual cost price, this actual cost price. So that's what price update is. It's updating the material master record, because the material master record should be the definitive position with regard to any material. So at that stage, you do the price update. And again, this is part of the original case. It's page 14. I've just given you page 14 there on the Moodle page. So this bit then, this bit is all interconnected. And when you've done that, when you've done your price update, those answers are written in stone, so to speak, and therefore, if you have the right answer, you have the right answer, which is great. When you've done all of that, then we are on to our last topic, topic 6. And the first stage is a small-ish task of, again, this case actually has 19 pages. So from page 15 on, I think on topic 6, I've given you the complete case, but you don't start at the beginning. You've already done all of that up to page 13 and then page 14. You start on page 15 and go through to the end, page 19, and basically you're just looking at producing the motorcycle. And in that case, you're asked to bring in 5 engines and 5 frames and make one motorcycle, leaving you with 1 motorcycle in stock and 4 frames and 4 engines left. You brought in 5 engines and 5 frames, and you're left with 4 of each. And then after that, we go on to a major logistics case, which should take about a week to do, which looks at the complete supply chain, the complete life cycles were from buying in your raw materials from your supplier, running through the production phase, doing an MRP run. You might remember we talked about what MRP does. That was a slide on the original topic. I'll come back to that in a little while. And then receiving a customer order from a new customer that we have to creating a customer order, and then producing the motorcycle and delivering it to the customer. So that goes through all those phases, and that's a major topic. And then you'll also upload this Excel work that you've done. You'll upload that through Moodle at the end. Remember, the SAP work is automatically saved on the server in Germany. You save each record and then it's all there. But the Excel work you must keep yourself and then upload at the end when it is done. When you've all 4 sheets done, you have the correct prices and you have the pivot table analysis done as well. I just have highlighted those in gray, as you see, because just to say, do not do a price update until you have these correct prices. Okay, so most people have still a lot of work to do, There are 4 weeks left officially to the end of November. That's 4 weeks of classes. The week after that is called a sort of completion and revision week. I suggest you get everything finished by the end of November and you don't go into that completion week, because it's also a revision week and you might have other things to complete as well. So try and get everything done in the next 4 weeks. I'll have a chat with Dave and decide whether we allow people to maybe do some finishing off in that final week or not. But the target is to finish it off in 4 weeks' time. Now, there's a lot to do. The Excel will require a lot of work. Okay, so that's just a summary of where we are and where we're going. Anybody got any questions?
Can you hear me, Martin? Can you hear me?
If you have, you can just mute, unmute, and
can you hear me? That's the speakers. So we go.
Yeah, that's good point, Nicola. So as I mentioned earlier, if you do put in the wrong, if you do a price update with the wrong price, you cannot change it till after the 1st of December, the following month, unless I were to delete the first one and allow you to do it again. But so we might allow people into December just to do that anyway. Okay. Right. Now, so Michael, if you're still having that problem, Michael Vaz, I'll come to you in a while, but I just want to move on to have a little look at Excel now. So, right. I'm going to share another screen with you now. So this is the Excel template I have given you on Moodle, and basically I want you to fill that in for the motorcycle. Now, don't think it's difficult. It's not, because everything is labeled. Everything is labeled. I want you to change that to your own 3-digit number, of course. You know, so N whatever, and everything is labeled. So you want to put in the purchase cost of the block, the purchase cost of the camshaft, the quantity, etc. So remember, you get your purchase costs from your material master record, you get your quantities from your bill of materials, and then you total them up. This table will have no figures there, so you need to just add in those figures. And I want you also to extend, these 2 lines are not on it. I want you to add those 2 lines as well, but I'll come back to that. You can just ask me when you're doing it. These are the rates within the system already for the work centers. We don't enter these. These are in for everybody using these work centers, and other people and other products are using these work centers as well. So those rates for machine, labor, and setup apply to everybody. This is the new work center that you created, and you'll put in your original value there, and then after the amendments, you'll change that to your new value. And then down here, so remember, we said at the start that cost of production is made up of 2 things: the material cost and the assembly cost. So here we have the cost of materials. And remember, we said the simple formula: price multiplied by quantity, and that'll give you the actual cost. So this is simply price multiplied by quantity, and add them all up. And then our second component is the assembly cost. And remember, we said the assembly cost is simply rate multiplied by time. So that's a simple calculation as well. So in here, you've got to type in your times. Got to type in your times, your setup time, your labor time, and your machine time. Where will you get the times? You get the times, of course, from your routing. So the routing for the engine will provide the times for the 4 operations of the engine: 10, 20, 30, 40, the 4 operations, and 3 times for each. And the same for the motorcycle over here. The motorcycle only has 2 operations. Then you'll put in the rates, which you'll get from the table above. Now I want you to use a lookup function for the rates, simply because the rates can change. I haven't checked them this morning. They may even have changed this morning, who knows? The rates can change. If they do change, incidentally, those final figures will change as well, of course. Or we might even change the work centers, as we know we do. For instance, we change this work center to this. And again, you'll make that change as well. So we'll use the lookup to look up the activity type. So remember, it's 1422 for setup, 1421 for labor, 1420 for machine. We look that up here, and we'll get the corresponding rate. So I'm just going to revise lookups and ifs in a moment. And then, as we said, once you have your rates in, your cost is simply rate by time. So again, it's a simple calculation: rate by time, or time by rate. Just remember, these are rates per hour. These are times in minutes that you get from your routing. And then follow the labels. We want a total for each operation. So a total cost for each operation. And then down below, we have summaries. So we have the total material cost, right? The total material cost, and then the total assembly cost. The total assembly cost is simply that plus that. and the total material cost is simply the cost of materials for the engine plus the cost of materials for the motorcycle, and the finished product, cost of the finished product is addition of those two. And then we'll just double check. We'll say the cost of the engine, which will be the material cost of the engine up here, plus the assembly cost of the engine down here, and same for the motorcycle, and the total, and this total will match this total, of course. It's just a cross check. So that's where you're going with that. And then you'll do this, and then, so that'll be sheet one. That'll be sheet one. And that'll be called motorcycle. Oops. What am I doing? Right. And sheet two then will be called motorcycle pivot. And sheet three will be called MCWSC. And sheet four will be called MCWSC to pivot. Okay? So you'll end up with 4 sheets like that. So when you've done this one in its entirety, you can simply copy that over to here. So you have all your formulas. You don't have to do your formulas again. So you do your formulas once. So you'll be able to do it efficiently that way. But a lot of thinking about that. Okay, so in a moment now, I'm going to do a revision of Excel. And I say revision because most, if not all of you, were in PS2 last year, and so have covered all of this. The only thing we didn't cover, although I may have done it with my group just briefly, was pivot tables, but I'm going to cover that in a bit depth. So I'm going to do a revision now of basically of the logical functions, if and lookup, and absolute addressing, which is very important in using these formulas. And also, then secondly, I'm going to do something on pivot tables and pivot charting. So I'm going to start that now in a moment. And if you can stay with me and follow that. If you think you know Excel inside out, you can go on with your other work. But I suggest you do. I'll go through it fairly quickly, and you can you can interrupt with any questions whenever you like. So I just want to. Okay. One second now. Okay, so you'll see here in topic 7. In topic 7, I have put 2 examples here. This first one is on ifs and lookups. The second one is on pivot tables. So I'm going to start now and take you through this. Okay, before I do, any further questions? No, okay. Right. Okay, so I'll just share this one with you now. Okay, so as I say, this is revision, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. I'll do the whole thing. I won't stop to let you do bits of it. I'll do the whole thing, and then you can attempt it afterwards and just get back to me if you have any difficulties and share your screen and so on. So first of all, we want to look at the if. Right, so this sheet is about if. So just want to look at the if function. So we basically want to give discount to the customer if the order value is greater than the value here in this cell, 10,000. The discount we want to give is 10%. So we've put those two cells up there because we can change them easily then. If we put them into the formula, then it's more difficult to change them. So we put those cells, those variables, we call those variables because we may decide we'll change that to maybe 12,000, we'll change that to say 15%, who knows. Anyway, so we say equals, obviously the start of formula, equals if, open the bracket, and then we have three parts, the logical test or condition. I call this the condition, then the true outcome and the false outcome. So the condition is this cell, we click on it, is greater than this cell. So that's your condition. C5 is greater than C2. Right? So we give discount if the order value is greater than the 10,000. Then comma, what we do if it's true, we give 10%, comma, what we do if it's false, 0. So three parts to the if function, the condition, C5 is greater than C2, the true outcome, D2, the false outcome, 0. Close our bracket. And then we want to actually show the discount amount in this cell rather than just a percentage. So outside the bracket, we can simply say multiplied by this cell. Okay, and then we could have, of course, multiplied D2 by C5 in the bracket either, but it's just neater to do it that way. Okay, so that's the correct answer. Now, however, and then we want to just drag it down. However, you'll see we have a problem when we drag down because this person should have got 10%. This person should have got 10% discount, but they didn't. And the reason is we can simply see by double clicking on the cell, which brings up the formula in this color coded fashion. So we can see that we're comparing this cell with that one, we're giving that discount. But if we go down to say that cell and we do the same, we can see now we're using this cell correctly, but instead of these two cells, we're using these two cells. So basically what we've got to do is we've got to stop those cells from changing as we copy down. So remember, we want this cell to change as we copy down. So we're looking at each relevant order, but we don't want these two cells to change as they would do. So remember, the normal way of copying, as we just did, is called relative copying or relative addressing. But sometimes and it means that cell numbers and letters will change relative to the number of rows or columns you copy through. But we want to change that to what's called absolute addressing. So absolute addressing, so we want to make C2 and D2 absolute, and we can do that by clicking on C2 and then using the F4 function key. And remember, if you have a laptop, as a lot of people do, you may need to use the function button as well. So function and F4 in my case, and then also in D2, I want to do the same function F4. So now our formula refers to the same cells, but you see what that F4 button does. It puts those dollar signs around C2 and D2, which means they won't change. So now if I copy down by just dragging from the corner, now I get the right answer. So if I'm down there, I'm correctly looking at that cell, but I'm still looking at those two. So that's absolute addressing. Very important, very, very important absolute addressing from a productivity point of view. And we'll come back to that in a moment to take it a little bit further. And then finally, our invoice total is simply the order value minus discount. Some people add discount, but of course we want to minus it. And then we can copy that down as well. And then we'll get a grand total using the auto sum over here. Auto sum is the quick way to get your total in there. Sum of those cells. Okay, so that's that's our if. Remember, 3 parts: the condition, the true outcome, and then the false outcome. What you do outside the bracket then depends on the circumstances, but the if function has those 3 elements within the bracket. Now note, the condition here is just one condition. You only have one condition, okay? So let's move on to our next one, which I've called if and. Now in this case, we'll have more than one condition. We'll have 2 conditions. We're going to say that the person will get discount if the order value is greater than 10,000 and the customer is from Dublin. So discount applies only to Dublin-based customers. So, as we said, the if only allows for one condition. Therefore, we need to use the and function if we want more than one condition. So, equals if, open bracket. Now we start with our condition, but in this case, we want more than one condition, so we need to use the and function. This is where we use it, just where we would put the condition. Open the bracket, and now we put in our 2 conditions. So our first condition is, doesn't matter which order we do, this cell is greater than this cell. And while I'm on that cell, I can do function F4 while I'm building it. And then comma, we separate our conditions, our multiple conditions, as you see there, we separate them by commas. So the second condition is that this cell is equal to Dublin. So I simply type Dublin in, but because it's text, I need to put it in double quotes. So I type it like this, and uppercase or lowercase doesn't matter. Type it like that. Okay? So that's my second condition. So remember, text must also always be in double quotes. So that's the condition part of my if. Now I have a comma. Now I go to my second part, the true outcome. So it's 10%. And again, I'll make that absolute as I'm building it. Comma, false outcome, true. Close that. And then finally, I want to, if I didn't multiply there, I'd get 0, which actually is 10%. Now let me just, so that actually is showing, if I just increase decimal, that's showing 0.1. It's rounded to 0, but it's 0.1, which is 10% as we know, and we can format that as a percentage. But we don't want just 10%, we want 10% of the number, so we'll simply multiply that by this cell. And oops, of course, I stupidly changed the format. I didn't want to. I put it back to number because I didn't want a percentage there after all. Okay, and this time I can copy it down straight. And these are all zeros, as you see. I'm just showing a different formatting here, just showing dashes for zeros, but those are all correct. Should this person get discount? No, because they're not from Dublin. Should this person get discount? They're from Dublin? No, because they're not over 10,000. If I were to change this value to say 16,000, then they will get discount because now it's over 10,000 and it's Dublin. We'll put it back to 6,000. Okay, and then again, the invoice total is minus that. And we'll bring that down. Okay, and this time we'll see the invoice total is greater than the last time because we're giving less discount. We're only giving discount on the basis of 2 conditions rather than 1. So that's the if and that's how we combine a number of conditions with the and. But that's only if we want all the conditions to be met. We may want to say if one condition or another condition is met. In this case, we said the order value and the address conditions must be met, but let's say we wanted one or the other. So simply, instead of using and, we use or. So in this next one, we're going to, to use or. And let me just do it quickly because since I have that formula built, it's exactly the same. So I'll just copy that formula, bring it in here, paste it, and then I'll simply change the and to or. And there we are. And this time we'll have many more people getting discount. This because you only have to meet one condition or the other. This one meets the Dublin condition. This one meets the order over 10,000 condition. So in this case, you have to meet one condition or the other. And again, this should be, so our invoice total should be much lower here. Well, somewhat lower because we're giving more discount because it's easier to get it. Okay, so that's if function, the if and the if or. So I want you to, if you're familiar with that, great. If you're not, you can just do these examples there for you in Moodle and you can see how it works. Okay, the other there are several logical functions, but the main two are if and lookup. So we're going to look at the lookup function now. Again, going through this fairly quickly because I'm considering it to be revision. So basically, if is ideal where there are 2 possibilities, a true outcome or a false outcome, just 2 outcomes. But in this case, we have many outcomes. So the discount rate, it's not just 10% or 0, it's either 0 or 5% if the order value is over 5,000, 10% if the order value is over 10,000, and 15% if the order value is over 15,000. So this is a different way of this is the same exercise, but just with different variables, so and multiple discount rates in this one. So instead of an if, we could do that with nested ifs, but it would be very, very, very complicated. So a lookup is ideal for this. Now, in this, there are 2 types of lookup, a H lookup and a V lookup. There's a new one that's just come out this year called the X lookup. We won't talk about that for now. It's not available yet on this version. And it's anyway, I prefer the original ones, the H lookup and the V lookup. So this table is organized horizontally, as we can see, horizontally. So therefore we use a H lookup. So we simply say equals. So what I want to do is I want to look up the order value as before. I want to look up the order value, but in this range of rates, range of values, and I want to find the appropriate rate on the column below. So we say equals H lookup. Open my bracket. And the first thing is the cell I want to look up. So it's that cell. That cell will determine whether I get how much discount I get. Comma. Then I want to look it up in the table. So I simply shade out the entire table, excluding the headings. That's just a heading. It's not relevant to the table. So there's my table. And at this stage, I can use function F4 to make that table absolute. And then, so that's that's my table. And then comma and 2. 2, because I'm saying within the table, I want to get the answer, the discount rate, from row 2 of the table. So what you're being asked for there is which row of the horizontal table, or which column if it's a vertical lookup, will you get the answer? And I get the answer from row 2 of the table. So it's not row 6 of the sheet, it's the second row of the table. The table is only 2 rows, so it's row 2. Now in this case, I've changed how I'm doing this a little bit. We want the discount rate here and then the discount value. Just maybe it's a little bit easier to understand. So it will close the bracket for us if we don't close it. And there's our 10%. So that's correct. And then we'll work out the discount value in the next cell. To do it slightly differently. So equals that cell by 10%. And then we can copy these down together if we like, or separately. And because we've already done the absolute addressing, we have no problem in copying them down. So there we are. So you see 10%, because it's over 10, 5% is over 5, 0 it's under 5, and 15% when it's over 15,000. You can see those are all correct. Then our subtotal is the order value minus the discount. Bring that down now. Okay. Now we have another factor in this whole thing. We also have carriage. So this company is in Dublin. It's in Dublin. So if the customer is in Dublin, there is zero carriage. But if they have to deliver to outside Dublin, there will be carriage charged. This will be a charge. So this time we want to look up the address, and we want there are 2 columns in this. This is done vertically, as we see vertically. So we'll use a VLOOKUP. We look up the address here, and we go across to the second column to get the answer. So equals VLOOKUP this time. So we want to look up this cell, comma, in this range, again, leaving out the heading. And again, we'll use function F4 to make it absolute, comma, 2. There we are, 0 for the first one, because it's Dublin, 0 carriage, and then the appropriate carriage for all the others. And then finally, the invoice total is the subtotal plus the carriage. Now we can bring that down. Let me put in a, yeah, we'll use the, sorry, I've got this just in the way, my sharing bar in the way there. Okay, so that's our total. Now, so that's lookup, H lookup and V lookup. Now, one more thing I want to show you is this. Let's just for the hell of it, I know Galway is further away from Dublin, but let's say we were to just say Galway was 30 and Athlone was 40. So I'll just change that to Galway. And change that to Athlone. And now look what happens. Look what happens. Now we have a problem. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Right? Is that because the system knows Galway is further from Dublin and therefore should cost more for carriage than Athlone? No, of course not. Well, but why has that happened? What is the problem here? The problem is that this table is no longer in ascending order. This table previously had been in ascending order, i.e., since it's text, alphabetical order, just like this table was in ascending numerical order. So the area of the table that you're looking up to find the particular value must be in ascending order, or else you've got to do the following. And again, we looked at this last year as well. So we can go up here into the formula, and there is actually one more element. So rather than 3, there are actually 4 elements, but we often leave one out, and that's comma true or comma false. Now, before I type it in, you'll see here it tells you that true means an approximate match and false means an exact match. Now, an approximate match means that when we're looking up our order values, it doesn't have to be only those 4 values. It can be in between. It can be 12,000, or it can be, 12,000, or it can be 7,000, or whatever. So true means an approximate match. It'll find anything between these 2 values. And similarly, you can have the same with text, because if it's in alphabetical order, you can have something between 2 things alphabetically. But in this case, it's no longer, but we cannot do that. We cannot use true, an approximate match, if it's not in ascending order. It must be in ascending order to use true. So in this case, I can use false. In other words, that is saying that the table is not, and then if I copy it down, you'll see everything is fine. So false simply means that I'm looking for an exact match, So it'll find Galway equals Galway, Athlone equals Athlone. It doesn't matter. It's not looking for an approximate match. So the simple rule of thumb is if your table is in ascending order, then you can use true. If it's not, you need to use false or put it into ascending order. Now, actually, I don't even need to write false there, because if I just put in the comma like so, right, it takes false as the default. So I'll copy that down. You see, I've taken false out. Okay, so if I just put in the comma without false, it assumes false. If I leave out the comma, it assumes true. Okay, and we're back to where we started. It doesn't work. So true or false, but you don't need to write in the word true or false if you don't want to. It's no big deal. But if you leave it out, it assumes true. But if you put in the comma alone, I know that kind of looks a bit funny, but comma assumes defaults to false. Okay, but just remember that and sometimes you won't get error messages, you'll just get the wrong values. So it won't always alert you with errors with NA, it'll just be the wrong value. So just be careful. Always ask yourself, is your table in ascending order with numbers or with text? And if it's not, then you use false. Okay, so that's lookup. And then finally, I just want to look at one more thing before I give you back control. So I'm going to go into another sheet here. Now, okay, let me just put in a few numbers here. Just keep this simple. Now, if I wanted to multiply all of those numbers by 10, so I want 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. We know at this stage we'd say equals that cell by that cell. But when we copy this down, we want the 2 to change to 300 and 400, but we don't want the 10 to change. So therefore, we have to make that B3 absolute like so. And now we can copy down. So C5 multiplied by $B, $3, and that gives us that. And we can see at the bottom one, the C5 has changed to C7 as we want, but the B3 remains a B3. It doesn't go to B5, which you would do otherwise. Okay, so that's what we've seen already, how absolute addressing works. But now I want to show you something else to do with absolute addressing. I'll just take that. Now, okay, just put 1, 2, and 10. Okay, so now I want to multiply these 3 numbers by these 3 factors here, 1, 2, and 10. So I expect to get 200, 400, 2,000. Here I expect to get 400, 800, 4,000. Now, how do I do this? So equals that cell by that cell. Okay. Now, if I, without doing anything, if I copy that down, okay, see it doesn't work. And if I copy it across, okay, get all sorts of funny answers because that one is correct. But this one, for instance, I'm multiplying by 200. I want to multiply by 1. And if I look at, say, this one, which should be 300 by 2, instead it's 60,000 by 400. So just delete that for a moment. So basically, so we have the right formula, equals that by that. But now, let's look at this carefully now. So study this carefully. Let's look at the two elements, C5 and D4. So C5, I want to allow change as I copy down to C6 and C7, but as I copy across, I want C5 not to change to D5, E5, and F5. So basically what I do is this. I go to C5 and I use my function key. So remember, I wanted to change as I copy down, but not as I copy across. So the function key is a toggle. It's got 4 options. Let's take my mouse out of the way. 4 options. Okay, so no absolute addressing on both the C and the 5, the column and the number, only before the 5, that stops the 5 from changing, or only before the C, that stops the C from changing. And that's what I want in this case. The D4, on the other hand, D4 is this number. As I copy down, I don't want the, now as I copy down, it is the number that would change, of course, but I don't want the 4 to change. I want it to stay D4 as I copy down. But as I copy across, I want the D to change to E and to F because I want to multiply by these factors down here. So remember, as you copy down, it is the number that would change. As you copy across, it is the letter that would change. So in this case, I want $4. Okay, so let's look closely what I've got here. $C5 multiplied by $4. And let's see if that works. Now I want to be able to copy this down and across. That's the point of this, to be able to copy it down and across. I don't want to, I know you could of course put 3 different formulas here or 3 different formulas there, but, and in this case, we haven't got much work to do, but if you had a huge spreadsheet, that's not feasible. So we want one formula that we can copy down and across. So let's copy it down, release it for a moment and grab it again. And now we see we have the right formula everywhere. So there, for instance, if I double click, we'll see it's that. If I go, for instance, there and double click, we see it's 300 by 2. If I go there, for instance, and double click, we'll see it's 400 by 10. So, oops, now that simple example. If you understand that simple example, you understand absolute addressing. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. But remember, there isn't just one way to make something absolute. There are 4 ways if you include no absolute. So $C5 stops the C from changing as you copy across, but allows the 5 to change as you copy down. $4 allows the D to change as you copy across, but prevents the 4 from changing as you copy down. Okay? It takes a little bit to get your head around that, but it's important. And in our example, we're going to need to use that. Okay, so those are the few things I wanted to show you just to, oh yeah, and okay, pivot tables. And the second thing is pivot tables. I'll do this now while I have everybody together when we've got a big number here. So now it'll just take 5 minutes to do pivot tables, because although the pivot table is probably the most powerful function or tool within Excel, it's a very, very simple one to use. So let me just do that now. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. In a little while, you can, if you want, you can go through this example on your own and show me if you have any problems, but I want to now go to the pivot table one. Okay, right, go back to now and share that one. Share screen. Okay, right, so I have given you this one as well. My way. Right. So here we have a quite large spreadsheet showing customer orders, the revenue from the order, the cost of the goods sold, and the profit for all these orders. And it's analyzed. Well, it's not analyzed yet. We're going to analyze it, but it's listed by with the region and with the product. And if I scroll down, we can see we have a long list. Right? Too far. Okay, so I have 564 rows, including my heading. And just for a moment here, I'm going to put in, I'm going to put in an auto sum. Okay, so my my total profit comes to 3,729,418. Now, what I want to do here is I want to analyze this profit figure by region and by product. So I want to know what is the total for the West region, the East to Central. I want to know what is the total profit for ABC, XYZ, DEF. But I also want to know, for instance, what is the profit for sales of ABC in Central? What is the total profit for XYZ in West, for XYZ in Central, for XYZ in East, for ABC in East, and so on and so on. All those different combinations would take, with 564 rows, it would take an awful long time to do it manually, but I can do it extremely quickly with pivot tables. So what I'm going to do is start by selecting my entire range, including headings. Remember, it's important to include the heading, and it's also important that you do not have a blank line between your heading and your first row. So I'm going to choose my first cell, and then I'm going to go right on down. I'm going to choose now my last cell, like so. Note, I'm not including the total, otherwise I'm double counting. So I've selected my entire range. Now I simply go to Insert, Pivot Table. Insert, Pivot Table. And I've already selected my range. I could do that now, but I did it beforehand. It's just neater. So I've selected my range. And then the only other thing is, do I want to show the pivot table on a new worksheet or on this one? Well, just for now, I'll use this one, existing worksheet. And then whereabouts do I want to do it? Well, I'll just do it. I'll do it here, say. Okay, just choose the cell. And then I hit OK. And this is what comes up. Now, actually, you're not, okay, I'll have to move my I'm also looking, I'm doing this, I'm going to move that so you can see it because it was hidden by something there. Now, okay, so my pivot table is going to start here, and all I have to do is choose what I want to analyze, namely the total profit, i.e. the profit column, and what I want to analyze it by, namely region and product. So first of all, I choose profit and make sure this goes down here and it says sum of profit. And you see my table starts to build, and there's the sum profit, the same as this figure. And then simply, what do I want to analyze it by? By region. So that should fall into the row or the column. And by product. Now this may fall into the row as well. If it does, I can simply, that table is fine, but it would be neater if I had it like that. Okay, or if I prefer the other way around, region over there and product over there. I can pull these around and have them whatever way I want. And that's it done. That's it finished. That's your pivot table done. And you see, there's my total profit. I can see, for instance, that's how much profit from product DEF in the East region. That's the total profit of the East region. That's the total profit of ABC. That's the total profit of the West. That's the profit from sales of XYZ in the West, and so on. I can make it a bit neater. I can. I've got a lot of stuff in my way here. Just. Oops. Now you'll notice that when I click on, oh, that's in your way now. Okay. I'm just going to move my table a moment so you can see it better. Right, you can see it now. So there's my table, and very quick. Now, when I click on the table, this appears. When I click off it, that goes away. But I can close it if I like. And then notice when you're working on pivot tables, up here, pivot table tools, analyze and design. So under analyze, I can choose bring back the field list. That's called a field list. I'll put it away. So that's my table. I can I can choose different designs if I want a nicer design. Whatever one I like. Okay, there's lots to choose from, and of course you can create your own as well. For instance, I want to say maybe I think those are a bit that yellow is a bit pale. I can go back to normal formatting and I can choose, let's say, what is that. So I can do my own formatting as well. And I can tidy it. There's lots of ways to tidy this up. I won't go into detail now on lots of things, but I can get rid of those, which I will do in a while. But I just wanted to bring this to a close. So 2 more things to show you. Firstly, note this. As you know, in Excel, if you change a value, I'm just going to add 3 zeros there, so it's a big change. So the total profit will change automatically. But that's how Excel works. It changes automatically. You see how that changed automatically. But note that pivot table does not. Pivot table does not change automatically, simply because there was so much work, so much processing power involved in doing this, in doing all this analysis, and maybe I have 20 changes to make. So why go through that 20 times, wait till all the changes are made, and then update once. So it doesn't change automatically. What we have to remember to do is go to Analyze and Refresh. Simply hit the refresh button, and then the pivot table is refreshed. Okay. Now I'm going to change that back again. That one. And take out my extra 3 zeros. And of course, this one goes back to what it should be, but this one doesn't. Automatically, I have to go to Analyze and Refresh. Okay, so just remember that when you make changes to your original data, you've got to refresh your pivot table. And then the last thing I want to show you just is move that a little bit. I might have my widths a bit funny, but anyway. Now, the last thing then is a chart. So a very simple pivot table chart up here again under Analyze, Pivot Chart. And I have all these options. I'll just take the default one, the clustered column one. So I'll take that one. And there's my chart. Let's move over here a bit. Done already. Now, two things I like to do is these buttons here are a bit ugly and they don't really add much. So I'll just right click and hide all field buttons on chart. And then this plus button allows me to add a chart title. So it's always important to have a chart title. So analysis of profit, whatever is appropriate, but I want a title. Okay, and again, I've got all these different options for my can have that sort of three-dimensional look or whatever. So that's pivot tables, and we're going to use a pivot table to analyze the production of the motorcycle by activity and by work center and by assembly as well, i.e. engine or motorcycle. But I'll show you that when you're ready to go on to the pivot table. Okay, so that's a lot. That's a lot covered today in Excel, but most of it is revision. And as we go along, as you start working on your Excel, you can come back to me if you have any issues with any of that. So as I said, those two examples are there in Moodle for you to work with yourself, just for a bit of revision. And when you're ready, then you can go on to the Excel work. Now, I just go back to this for a moment. So the order in which you do things doesn't really matter, but remember, you won't get these answers until you've all the parts done. You won't get the right answers. So I would suggest it would make sense to get to here and then do your Excel, and then when you have the right answers, do your price update, and then leave topic 6 to the end. But if you want to do topic 6 and come back and do Excel, that doesn't matter either. Okay, so that's where we're going with all of this. Any questions on that? Okay, so quite a bit of work to do, 4 weeks in which to do it. So you need to keep at it. Okay, so I'll let you go off now. And if you have any issues or any questions, just unmute and ask me, or else use chat if you prefer. And when you're using chat, you can do it privately or publicly, whichever you prefer, just by using the drop-down box. Oh, sorry, Fiona, yeah? Oh, Michael, sorry, Michael. Hold on one second, Michael. I have to go ahead. SAP. Radio. Yeah, yeah, take your time. No. But a better thing for you to, no, I can't say that, Michael. You can share your screen. You can share your screen. Well, show me the one that it's got it on. Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, right. Yeah. But Michael, have you done your remote log on first? This morning? Are you sure? And that worked, no problem. Yeah. Right, fine. So basically, all you do is you double click on your SCP-1. Just double click on SCP-1 as you would have done before. Okay, well, you'll you'll need to show me the screen you're working on, Michael, if for me to. Fine. Meantime, anybody else got any questions or issues? Yeah. Fine.